Hey everybody, this is your boy Marcus Norman from Gentleman Style Podcast, your host of the number one podcast coming to you live in America. And today we have a incredible guest. This is All-Star Weekend, All-Star Week. I told you I was filling this week with dynamic, powerful speakers, and this my special guest, you are not going to believe it. I don't know how I found her, but I found her, and she is serving the community and she is changing the absolute business game. Miss Toshiba Billings. Just a little about my guest. This powerful woman, Miss Toshiba Billings, is a mother, self-published author, talk show host, business strategist. That's right, business strategist, and an entrepreneur above all else. Are you really shocked? Are you really surprised? I'm not. She is a visionary behind Billings Consulting, where she works with minority business owners to develop a strategy and a risk assessment and risk mitigation component for small and medium-sized business. Today, we have my very special guest. Hearts, likes, comments, please welcome my very special guest, Miss Toshiba Billings.
Namaste. That was quite the introduction. I was over here smiling for myself. I was like, is that me?
That is absolutely you. That is you all day long. Miss Toshiba, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast, Gentleman Style. Thank you for coming out today. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. That was quite the introduction.
Absolutely. Yeah. I cannot spare any expense. We have to go all the way here. You know how it is. So, Miss Toshiba, diving right in. I gotta jump right in. Your business, you have been helping the community, serving the community for a long time. And I want to dive in. Your component of your company is Toshiba Billings Consulting. What problems have you seen plague small and medium-sized businesses continuously over and over again? What is it you're seeing?
You know what? I think there's a couple of things. I think marketing and scalability, right? I think a lot of the times we jump into entrepreneurship for many reasons. Everybody has their different reasons. I know for Black-owned businesses, a lot of what I get is, tired of the corporate BS, along with the fact that they are not getting paid what they're worth. They're not able to get into the positions that they want to do. And you know what? To me, it's like if you have a hobby, skill, whatever, and you want to start a business, I'm always encouraging people to do so, but we don't necessarily always go into it with a strategy or a plan, right? If you are, if you know how to cut hair, you want to become a barber, you may open a barber shop or do a mobile barber business, but you're not actually thinking about the strategy behind it in terms of where you want to go. What does that look like? What does your client retention policy look like? What does your client acquisition policy look like, right? Like what kind of marketing are you going to do? How are you going to ensure that, you're not constantly pounding the pavement looking for more clients? How do you make sure you retain the clients and make sure that they're giving you referrals so that your business can grow? So there's so many things that we don't think about when going into business. And for me, that was kind of the main thing that I'm finding is that the act of going to the business is there, maybe not a lot of thought about how to grow the business. So scalability with that second one.
Absolutely. So you've done it. You have achieved the pinnacle that we all strive for in business, right? You've been a regional manager, business architect. How did you know to walk away? And how did you know? How did that feel? How did you know it was the time?
So how much time we got? That is a very good question. So there's lots of stories behind that. So, I'll kind of start with, it was something that happened that made me take a pause and think to myself, why do I have a seat at the table when my voice doesn't matter, right? And I think often we have these seats at the table and we've worked hard to achieve where we are, because I'll go a little bit into, I'm writing my 7th book, and it's basically called There Are No Handouts, Yes, 7th. So I wrote the one that you introduced was a 6-book series, but we can get to that later. But I'm writing a book called basically "There Are No Handouts for Black Girls," right? And I had a moment in my career where someone tried to attribute something that had happened to the fact that I had gained this level of accomplishment solely because I was Black. And I thought to myself,
Wow.
yes, right? And I was like, there are no handouts for Black girls. Like, what are we talking about? I don't have that level of privilege, right? And I had a moment of pause that I thought to myself, I keep finding myself in positions that I work really hard in to get seats at tables, to realize that my voice really doesn't matter. Because am I there because I'm ticking a box? Am I there because I will put in the 60-hour weeks where nobody else will? Like, why am I really at this table when I can go build my own table? So, when that situation happened, and there's a bunch of things that happened after it, I just said kind of enough is enough. And I was already kind of doing business part-time and some other things. And I can tell you, actually, one of the big things that catapulted this, especially for this year, is there's a website called futureme.org, which allows you to basically write a future letter to yourself. So you can write a letter today and send it to yourself, and you can get the letter, 1 year, 5 years, whatever you choose from this date. And that, basically that letter will show up in your inbox, right, on the date that you set. So in 2019, so I want to say like New Year's Day of 2019, I said, I'm going to write myself a future me letter, and I'm going to set it for New Year's Day of 2020. And listen, my letter had all these hopes and dreams, and I was going to rule the world. I was going to Beyonce that beep, right? Like
You gonna show up?
it was a love letter to myself, right? Of all of the things that I was going to do. And that letter showed up in my inbox in January 2020. Totally forgot I had even written this letter. Opened this letter, totally forgot, right? Because listen, there's so much. It was a full year. There's so much that happened in that year. It's like a gazillion things that happened that I actually forgot that I wrote this letter to myself until it showed up in my inbox and I read it. Marcus, I did none of the ish. Like I did none of it, right? And the funny thing is, all the things that I'd written in the letter to myself were the things that I was actually passionate about, right? Like they were true to me. It wasn't, the corporate BS that I was dealing with. It was things that for me, I was passionate. I was like, I want to do this and I want to do that. And I didn't do any of it. And funny enough, my girlfriend that I host my talk show with, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, I found out that they had actually written future me letters to themselves and had the same situation where everything that they written that they were passionate about, they had spent so much time dealing with the corporate stuff that's going on in their life and spending all those hours. They had done none of it. And so it was kind of an eye-opening moment, coupled with the fact that incident about, I'd only gained this accomplishment. And the accomplishment that I had gained was I had been asked to speak at a Women's Day event in my old neighborhood, because I'd grown up in a pretty rough part of Toronto. I'm originally from Jamaica, grew up in Toronto, and I went back into the community to do, yeah, right? I went back to the community to do some community service work, which I was basically setting up almost like a shopping experience for the people in the community, because I'd had, people from my workplace and so forth donate, gently used clothing, right? And it was mostly winter jackets because it was winter. So anyways, when I went back in the community, they were so like, oh my God, you left the community. My mother still lived in it. I'd come back and I really wanted to do good in the community. They thought you would be the perfect person to speak at this Women's Day event. Of course, I was honored because, again, that's the community that made me. And so, I had that incident of being told that I had only accomplished that because I was Black, right? Like, nah, like that ain't it. Okay, right? And now I've got this future me letter of all the things that I wanted to accomplish that I hadn't. And I think it was one of those kind of moments when I put it all together and I was like, I can't keep doing this, right? The definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And I felt that in my corporate world, despite all of the things that I had done, in all the levels that I had achieved, I still was hitting a brick wall, and it was time. I needed to blow that shit up. Pardon my language, everybody, but it was time for me to blow that up. So that was a long story, but there we go.
No, that's it, right? I think a lot of people feel that way, and a lot of people aren't willing to come to that level of reality about themselves, and that they're not. They feel like I just need to take it to the next day, but is that next day actually pushing you towards your purpose? I think millions of people can relate to that, and unfortunately, you came to the abrupt realization all at once. You got the letter. Your partner was going through the same thing, who you now run a show with. I mean, it was just kind of all at once. And it just that stiff reminder, in that blatant reminder, are you working in your destiny? So that's true.
That's
That's
it.
true.
And that's it. And it's funny because one of the pictures that you had going through your introduction, I have that picture on my vision board, and it's the picture with the man and the woman holding hands who are getting married. And that is actually a vision board.
Really?
That was interesting. And the reason I'm bringing up my vision board, can you still see me? Because my vision board is my vision board, which I did, was also one of those moments for me. And I think it's actually what kind of gave me the strength to make the decision
Mm.
that I made to vision board. When I made the decision to create a vision board, I wanted to have a word really captured what I was looking for. I wasn't just going to do a vision board. I had to do a vision board, right? And so I was in a place, and I was like, kind of what am I looking for? Like, what is it that I'm seeking? There's something, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it, and I wasn't going to do my vision board until I knew what this word was. And it was my 39th, right before my 39th birthday. My birthday's in November. So right before my 39th birthday, my brother called me, and he was like, I'll be 41 next month.
I would have never known. I would have never
Yes,
known.
thank you so much. I appreciate that. So right before my 39th birthday, it was like literally, my birthday's November 19th. It was like November 18th. My stepbrother called me, and he's like, let's go to dinner. I was like, sure, let's do this. And we're at dinner, and I'm kind of telling him all the things that's going on. At this point, I'm working like 60-hour weeks. I've got a teenage daughter ending high school. I've got all these other things that I have on the go. And in the middle of the conversation, I was just like, freedom. And I was like, that's it. That's actually what I'm looking for. I am seeking freedom. And but I needed to further define what freedom meant for me, right? Like, what does freedom mean for Toshiba? And it was through the vision board process I kind of went through. And so, I wake up, I'm not at home right now. I'm actually, I took a road trip from Toronto to Vancouver. So I'm actually in Vancouver, Canada, and I live in Toronto, Canada. But anyway, so I do this big, right? Here's the thing, let me cut that for a second. The reason I even decided to do this road trip was because I'm the person who will ask people, when's the last time you did something for the first time, right? I'm always asking people, when does that, I've never done a road trip across the country. It's just not my thing. And one of my best friends, he was like, hey, I'm going to take this road trip because of COVID. Like, a lot of people don't want to fly, and I completely get it. Like, COVID is, changed the way we do things. And so he said, come with me to Vancouver. And I was like, well, hell no. I'm not going to be in no car. Hello. And then I really thought about it. And even my daughter even said to me, she's like, Mommy, like, when are you going to be able to do this any other time? Like, really take this time and go take a road trip. And then, I thought about it. I was like, you know what? Since I keep asking people this question, I'm going to do this. It'll be the first and maybe last time I take a road trip across Canada. It took us 4 days. So that's
How'd it go? How's it going? Going well?
Well, Vancouver's a little rainy. I've been able to do some work because being trapped in a car for 4 days, you don't necessarily get to do any work. I tried to write my book and so forth. But you know what? It's good to be in a different space. And I think, when we sometimes get out of our own mind, I think that's good. So that's been
true.
a good.
That's true. It leads to experimentation and growth because your mind is now expanded. So
There you go.
Talking about landscapes, how does your company, Toshiba Consulting, change the landscape for a business? How do say if I'm a small business owner, my audience is full of small business owners. How does your company specifically change the landscape for their company, for my company?
That's a good question. Look at you throwing out the questions. Maybe that's why I told you not to give them to me in advance, so you get my raw reaction. Anywho,
On
so
the
I think
spot.
right. I think it all depends on the business owner and where they're at with their business. Let me first say this for, and I can speak for Black-owned businesses. We are a lot of our mindsets are just not there because
Mm.
we have been conditioned to believe that in the level of success that we want to achieve, that pinnacle is not there for us, right? Like, and we set our bars very low. Extreme, like I've noticed how people set their bars extremely low, and I'm like, really, this is a brilliant idea. This can go, but their mindset isn't there. So funny enough, one of my friends who I do the show with, she's a mindset coach, right? So she does neurolinguistic and mindset coaching. So one of the first things I would say to small business owner is get your mind right. And I say that in the most
Top tier.
respectful way possible, right? Because this is not an easy thing. Being an entrepreneur, being a Black entrepreneur is not an easy thing because we already know the systemic oppression, the systemic racism in financing, in procurement, and that we could list them off. They're
Preach.
all right.
Preach.
And if you are already self-defeating, because I know, listen, imposter syndrome is real. And I know a lot of us deal with imposter syndrome that, doesn't matter how many accolades we have behind our names, we still feel like we're frauding through life, right? And we deal with imposter syndrome and our mind isn't right. So I would say in the most respectful way possible, ensure that your mind is right, right? Because this is a tough road and it's a tough battle. And COVID, for some people, it's made it better. I know in certain places, I have a client whose business has gone up 60% since COVID, but he's in the financial business and everybody realized, crap, I need to get my financial house in order. And so he was able to run with that. And then being online now, he opened up his business to such a bigger market, right? The second thing I would say after getting your mind right is know how to pivot. I think one of those things that we get stuck in a lane and we don't know how to pivot, right? It's just like we have these blinders on and this is the way I conduct business. And we actually don't know how to actually pivot. And so I think any business can pivot. I think a lot of people, even with the brick and mortar businesses that people have, being like, we got to get used to this. Although as Black people, our new normal, like nothing's ever been normal for us, right? Like it's never been normal. But this new normal, this is going to be here for a while. COVID isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Unfortunately, people, this is going to be the reality. And you need to get into your mindset of how can I adapt my business to today's world? And 18 months from now, if it shifts again, you're going to need to shift with it, right? And I think those are the important keys that people need to consider is that you have to be adaptable. And yes, I won't say 100% of all business can be adaptable, but most business can adapt, and that's going to be important because the reality is things are always changing, whether it's a pandemic or it's just that your consumer base changes, right? All of these different things. If we get through another financial crisis, which is coming, how you do business is going to have to change again. So I would say be adaptable. And I also say, on top of being adaptable, be open to seeking advice, be open to being able to get help because we often want to shoulder the burden of our business by ourselves. And I know that's something that's a big thing with me. I don't delegate well. Actually, I don't delegate
You
at all.
hold on to everything.
Right? I'm like, I hold on to everything. But sometimes we need to recognize where our strengths and our weaknesses lie and know when we need to say, you know what, that's not in my wheelhouse. And so I need to outsource. And it doesn't mean hiring, right? But it does mean saying, I need some additional assistance and let me see where I can ensure that my time and resources are being well spent. So if you know that, like I have a client who, her business is doing well, but she doesn't like to write copy. She doesn't like to write. And so I wrote the entire copy for her website because again, I write books. So It wasn't anything for me to say, okay, let me understand your voice and write your copy. So she was able to outsource that. I was able to bang that out in whatever amount of time to let her focus on her business, what she was good at, which is to generate, the money, right? That's your revenue generating, right? So why are we focusing on the things that are not creating revenue for us? Because we go into business to create revenue. So if you're bogged down
Not another
with the
job.
things that, right, if you're bogged down with the things that aren't going to create revenue, what are you doing, right? You're spinning your wheels. So I think those are three things that I would say. Hopefully that
Absolutely.
answers.
That definitely answers the question. So knowing when to pivot, knowing when to get out of your lane. It sounds like just get out of your own way and let the experts that you hired or you paid and take that advice and delegate well. And that's powerful. I've seen it, right? We've all seen it. A lot of businesses did not pivot well in this pandemic. A lot of companies did not, they was trying to hold on to the old, and some of them still think that the old is coming back after this is all said and done in the vaccine. They're thinking, well, yeah, we're at a loss right now, we're not making money, we're not generating money, but we'll go back to the old way and things will just go back to the way it was. It can't. It absolutely cannot. You cannot go from an office environment to now say you've sent all your employees and made your employees who you could make virtual and then expect them to come back willingly when they've
That
proven
part.
themselves for 6 months that they can do the same amount of work, if not more, in the comfort of their own home.
There you go. And that's something that's interesting because that's even affected the real estate market. I can speak for Toronto and a few people that I've talked to. Now that you don't have to be, close enough to your workplace, because if you've ever been to Toronto downtown has got so many different, regions. There's the financial district and, these government areas. And so a lot of people will abandon, living in the suburbs to go in the concrete jungle that is downtown Toronto. Well, now, if you can work virtually, I don't need to live 15, 20 minutes from where I work. I can live 2 hours if I want to. I can live in a damn near other country at this point. And so people have taken opportunities to go to, the Barbados and Bahamas and a bunch of different West Indian, Caribbean countries. We're offering people an opportunity to go work from there for a year, right? No restrictions. They just had to have a job. So some people took that opportunity, right? Some people are buying, homes, selling their homes in the city and going 3 hours away from, say, Toronto, where I live. So now people are actually changing their life because they're also saying, my quality of living has gone up. Yes, COVID has definitely had some detrimental things. I'm watching CNN right now. The death toll is over 227,000 people just in the United States alone. So we absolutely know that the impact has been vast. But I think what it's also done for a lot of people is it's made them realize things that they were told was not possible was now possible. And a lot of people were told their jobs could not be done from home. Well, surprise, your job can be done from home.
Amen.
So,
Amen. You are hitting it. You are hitting it. And just like you said, so many changes are coming out along with the bad. In order to gain new growth, you got to burn down the force a little bit. There has to be some growth to make room for the new. So you're hitting it. You're speaking on it. And so your company helps other businesses transition to that. And so you must have got a hold of my questions, because
I did not.
in the age of COVID-19, what is the best way for the business with employees in the office setting to pivot? And you touched it on the head, is going virtual, right? A friend of mine owns a business and he's struggling. He owns a restaurant. So the restaurant industry, automatically, you can't send me my food digitally. But DoorDash, Uber Eats, you can pivot and now focus on building your marketing with these established companies like DoorDash. And he refused. He absolutely refused. He's like, I'm not doing DoorDash. I'm not going to a delivery model. I said, you absolutely need to go to a delivery model because people are home.
Here's another idea for him, if he's watching, or you can tell him this. Another idea is meal prepping. right? So that, meal
Yeah.
prepping is another big industry that people are in, because the reality is just because people are home does not mean that they still want to cook. There are still people who, believe it or not,
Yes.
are working harder at home. And, in Toronto specifically, you are doing you can either do virtual schooling with your kids or send them to school. And actually a lot of people have decided to do the virtual school. So they're trying to run their business, watch their kids go through school, do all of those different things, right? So, if he's adamant that he doesn't want to go to Uber and DoorDash, and I get it, because I've, talked to some business owners and watched the news, and they said that the charges that Ubers and so forth giving you, it's, like 25 or 35%, right? So they're, in their minds, they're already
Huge
losing.
cuts.
But if you want to, you could create a meal prepping service. You could create it where people can order from you. So I know a lot of, I've got a couple of restaurant people that did that. They put out like, here's my menu for the week, order in advance, and you've got people who are paying for that. Because again, they don't want to cook, right? So you can do it as a one-off, or you can create a simple website, go on Squarespace, go on wherever. You can have that, website up in literally a couple of days, and create kind of that order system, right? You're going to buy the food, like, or you're going to sit around and do nothing? No. So I think that's another option. So meal prepping, or kind of doing like an order thing. You'd be surprised. And if he already has customers, they know him, right? And so that's it.
That's so true.
That's a good
That's
way to
so
do
true. And that's a good offer. What your company offers is so needed, especially now. Businesses are not transitioning well, so you are absolutely needed. On the topic of stagnation, your company focus on strategy development, marketing, and branding. Why why those three things are important to a business?
I think clearly, if you have no strategy, you have no path, right? And I think, again, what is your path? Where do you want to be? Where's your finish line, right? And wherever you want to be, we need to start there and come forward. I think a lot of people start from the beginning and try to get to the end. But if you don't know where you really want to go, what steps are you going to take to get there, right? It's like,
Right.
for me, I can tell you something that works for me. When I'm doing something, I put a deadline to it. So I'm holding myself accountable by saying, by this date, this needs to be done. And so if you know
Mm.
that, what, here is my 18-month goal for my company, or my it could even be a 5-year goal for your company. Start from where you want to be in the future and break it down into incremental goals, right? Because sometimes you hear 1 year, 5 years, that's like, oh my God, that's just so much time. And people start to panic. It's a natural reaction to panic because there's so much to do. But if you break that down and you say, okay, in year 1, this is one of what I want to achieve, and you break it down 3, 6, 9, 12 months, you got year 1 covered. And even in your 3 months, you can break your 3-month down into 1-month increments, right? You need to
Quarters.
start, right? You need to start thinking like that, because what happens is, now when you hit certain benchmarks, you mentally, even that mentally, your mind is saying you're one step closer to your goal. If it's this big, 5-year, 3-year, whatever goal, without no end and no incremental changes that you see, you're going to be like, oh, forget it. A lot of people just give up because there's like, this is too much work, and I'm not getting where I want to be, because they're not celebrating the small wins. So for me,
Absolutely.
strategy is important. And again, it's built with your mindset. Are you built for this? Let me tell you something. Not everybody's built for being an entrepreneur.
No.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with choosing to be an employee. Just make sure that you understand, and you're respected as an employee, and understand your rights as an employee. But there's nothing wrong with being an employee, because entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. So I try to figure out, is this really for you? And sometimes it's a tough road, and people don't get it. Like, they might not like me after, because I'm like, you need to really step away and say, how much of yourself are you willing to commit to making this work? Because your business is literally like a second baby. If you have a baby, it's the second one. If you don't have one, it's your baby, right? So a strategy is important, because I need to know where their mindset is. And then after you have the strategy, people need to hear about your business. You cannot sell a secret. Okay, listen, I'm Jamaican, again, I've said that. And we want to keep things to ourselves. Listen, I don't know if any of your viewers are Jamaican, so I'm going to do a little patois. Me not going to tell nobody my business, because if people know some of this, like, it's one, right? Like, they're not saying anything. And I'm like, How do you sell a secret? Because you're going to be broke, right?
Right.
You absolutely cannot sell a secret. And marketing is busting the secret, right? Like marketing is saying, hey, world, I have this product or service, and this is what I do. And the key to marketing, and for those who are listening and watching, please understand this. Do not market your product or service. Someone is coming to you because you have a product or service that they want.
Mm.
Market transformation that your product or service will give them. So, what is the result? Okay, I want results. If I'm coming to you, I want results. Therefore, you marketing your product or service doesn't tell me what my results will be after I do business with you. And I think, if I can give away a free tip, everybody, that's my free tip for the day. Market your transformation and or results when someone does business with you or buys your product, as opposed to marketing the product, right? And I think, there's benefits and features, right? We can all list features. Oh, these are the features of my thing, but what are the benefits of doing business with you? What is my final transformation? If I go and I take a course, it's because I want to have learned whatever. And if I know I'm not going to learn that, I'm not going to take that course. So if you own a hair salon, if you own a hair product store, if you give out business advice like I do, will the person be better after having interacted with you? Will they be better after having bought your service? That is what you sell.
And branding. So branding is, 'cause a
You
lot of people mix that up.
you are your brand. Branding is
I,
what people say about you after you've left the room.
ooh,
That's the
ooh.
best way for me to put it, right? What do you want people to say about you after you've left the room? Because that really is branding. You are your brand. Whether we like it or not, you are your brand. You represent your business, especially when you are a very small business or just a solopreneur, right? So you're the only one. Like I'm a solopreneur, I'm the only one in my business, right? And I am my business. And what do you want people to say? Like, what do I want people to say about me to you after they've watched this, right? That's my brand, right? Because often people are not going to say in your face that you suck, right?
Right, right.
Especially in Toronto, because people are polite in Toronto, right? So they may not say, girl, you full of shit. But they'll say it to you after you've left the room. And so that's the best way for me to describe it to people is, what do people say about you after you've left the room? That is your brand. And so people need to decide what they stand for. What do I stand for? What does my brand stand for? All of those different things, and stick with it, right? And I think what was interesting during this complete social unrest summer, and God, rest the souls of everybody who's died at the hands of police, the young man that recently died in Philadelphia. We've just been going through it as a people, right? And so what we were noticing is there were so many companies doing these blackout squares. We support Black lives and we are all about Black lives. And former employees were like, nah, no, you're not, because you have a code for when Black people come and shop in your store. And no, you're not. Right? Like people just started calling people out because the reality is they were riding the social consciousness train, but they weren't dealing with all the stuff that they had dealt with before. You can't be riding a social consciousness train if you know that your store has a code for when Black people to come and shop in it, right? You can't ride the social consciousness train if you've got a CEO like Charles Schwab just said from Wells Fargo that the reason he don't got Black people is that he can't find talented Black people. Stop this, right? No, stop it, right? And so you need to think about that because those things are going to be important, right? Stand for something. Like, what do you stand for, and stick with it. So that is what I would say was branding. Sorry, I just went on a little bit of my soapbox, but I do that every once.
No, no, y'all. I love this. I told you guys. I told you, Miss Toshiba Billings is spilling the tea. The tea. And you're only going to get this on Gentleman Style Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. You're not going to get this anywhere else except in her consulting course. And this is powerful. I told you guys. Oh my gosh. I told you guys she was powerful. All-Star Week. Miss Toshiba,
Yes.
you touched on it. You touched on it a little bit, and I really, really want you to dig deep on this. You're because you're talking about companies not standing for what they're jumping on the bandwagon now, but they weren't on board 6 months to a year ago. And
Mhm.
you touch on a very significant thing, and you've touched on this a while, but it's now coming to light, is uncovering unconscious bias,
Yeah.
right? And you have a guide. You guide companies through this. How does that help my business mitigate risk by uncovering that unconscious bias within my organization?
What's so funny, again, the social consciousness train that everybody's trying to ride right now. I'm an avid LinkedIn user. I post on LinkedIn every day. I'm on LinkedIn to see what's going on. And more I see, companies hiring diversity and inclusion, managers, right? Or directors of
Right.
diversity and inclusion. Stop for a second. Here's the problem with that, right? A lot of people don't understand that diversity is about checking a box, right? That's what it is. And they started white women get onto boards, right? Just like affirmative action started, it wasn't for Black people, right? It was to create equality for white women. Like, get this right, right? And so, this new idea of diversity and inclusion, and people are coming in there and they're doing training. And the problem is, I've heard of situations where, a group of white men have walked into a diversity and inclusion training with t-shirts that had the word Target on it, right? Because they were already going in there feeling that they were going to be target of this training, right? Because again, the white men and white male privilege and so forth and so on. And so you go in, you do these training, and you either have an outside company or you create a position under HR. So that's the first thing. If anybody owns a company and they're looking to hire a diversity and training and inclusion person, do not put them under HR. Diversity does not belong under HR. It is a separate thing. The moment you put them under HR, it is a failure. Be clear. Nobody in your organization trusts your HR department. They're there to pay them and give them their benefits. The reason they do not trust them is because they do not work for the employee. They work for the employer. And so therefore, if you're putting diversity and training and inclusion under HR, I am not going to go to you and tell you that I think my boss is a racist, sexist, misogynist, right? Like, you
Right.
work for him. You don't work for me. So, that was my rant for a second. So anyways, to go into it, my thing was, until you actually are able to dismantle the problems within your organization, you will never be able to fix them. And the reason is unconscious bias form the basis of a company's policies and procedures. The things about unconscious bias is what? They are unconscious. And a lot of the times, unconscious biases actually help us to live our life well. Fight or flight is a part of unconscious bias. We recognize certain things are wrong and we flee. We don't want to be in a situation. But the problem with unconscious bias is when you have people
Oh.
who in an organization who see life through a particular lens, and through that lens, when they are creating policies and procedures within their organizations. And I'm going to give you an example. A lot of people think this is just about black and white, and it's not. Think as an able-bodied person. If you're an able-bodied person, you're not thinking about the person, not necessarily going to write policies thinking about a person with physical limitations. I'm going to give you an example. When COVID happened in Toronto, when we're the height of our COVID, and we're actually going into stage 2 now, they created an extended patios because the restaurants indoor were closed. So they created patios so that people could go and eat outside, so these restaurants could make money. Well,
Right.
if you have a wheelchair and it's on the sidewalk, because they extended the sidewalk, how exactly are you going to be able to dine at a restaurant? Because it's off the sidewalk. You don't
Mm.
have a ramp to go down onto the sidewalk. So as an able-bodied person, I can walk down, step down, and sit at the table that they've set up for the outdoor patio. If I'm in a wheelchair, how do I get access to it? Unless you give me a ramp. Well, most people didn't think about it. It's not that they don't cater to people who have physical limitations. It's just because they don't think about it, because that's not their day-to-day reality. And those are the things I talk to companies about, right? If you're in a meeting and someone is visually or hearing impaired, if they don't tell you that, or somebody does not like have a hearing aid, right? Like you're thinking they're perfectly fine. Maybe they're not. And so maybe they're quiet because they cannot hear or even really see. Again, companies don't think about that. A company might decide that they want to have a Friday night at 3, if Friday at 3 we close the office and we all go to the local bar to go and have some drinks and chop it up. Well, what if your employee's religion prevents them from drinking? So if I'm a Muslim, I'm not going to go drink with you. If
You just pushed me out.
right, exactly. If I'm a young mom, I'm not going to go drink with you. If I just don't drink, period. For years, I didn't drink. I didn't have my first, alcoholic beverage until I was 26 years old. So if I
You
was
Jamaican, right? You Jamaican, right?
I am Jamaican. It was just a thing, but that's another story. So all of a sudden, something again that you've created, thinking this is a great way to create camaraderie with the group. You actually haven't thought about your full employee base because you've excluded a bunch of people. So now you've created an in crowd of people who go to the bar and who are going there every Friday and drinking and creating this kind of a clique, and they're bonding, but you're actually excluding a whole bunch of people. So, when I talk about unconscious bias, uncovering unconscious bias, again, I let people know this isn't just about black and white, because the reality is unconscious bias is costing companies a ton of money because people disengage, right? Disengagement is one of the biggest impacts of unconscious bias. The moment you feel like I'm not being heard, I'm not being seen, what do? You retreat. And if you've retreated and they're asking you for your ideas, well, you don't hear me and you don't see me, so why do you want your ideas? And your idea could actually be the idea that brings this company, increase their profit margin by 30%. You aren't going to give it. You're going to be tiddling away trying to figure out either how to take your idea and turn it into a business or leave and go somewhere else. So you've disengaged. And according to the statistics, it is like $350 to $550 billion per year just North American companies lose from employees that are disengaged, right? And when we think about microaggression and micro-invalidations and the subtle little racism that happens at work, people are not afraid to go and sue people anymore, right? One of my best friends is a lawyer for the government, right, of Canada, right? And people are very quick right now, because we're in this new age, right, of real social consciousness, where Black people are like, we ain't taking this shit no more, right? Asian people, everybody's like, we are done. We are tired. We're not taking this no more. And so people are going to sue. Well, suing costs money, right? And if you had just nipped this in the bud and recognized that the policies and procedures, which are the basis that form your company, are inherently racist or sexist or misogynist or whatever isms we want to put on it, that actually is how you do the risk assessment and risk mitigation. So, that part of my business, I pivoted into once COVID happened, because I was seeing there's a lot of diversity in training. And I was like, but if your policy and procedures are the same after they've left, then you've done nothing. You've wasted money, having people do training they don't want to do and feel attacked, but you still actually have the foundation of your company is still racist or sexist, or like I said, or whatever isms or there is. So that's what it is. I know I get on a soapbox, so pardon me, buddy.
Nope. We need that. I need that. My audience needs that. You have an actual question here from our audience member, and I wanted to share it on the screen. It sounds a combination of things, like a question and a confession. I have a cleaning. This is Miss Hutchinson. I have a cleaning franchise, but want a creative customer base that I don't have to share with the franchise. ?
Oh,
so that's a unique. Yes.
Yeah, that is unique, because she'd have to look at her franchise agreement, right, and determine what is allowed and not allowed with her franchise agreement. Because one of my old companies, we did have franchises, and you have to be very careful because they will be very quick to sue you. And so I would say, Claudette, look at your franchising agreement and speak to your lawyer in terms of what you can and cannot do, because our old company had certain marketing rules that you had to go by. If they marketed this way, you had to market a certain way, but there's always loopholes. Listen, everything in life, there's a loophole, right? And so try to figure out the loophole, because at the end of the day, you want your franchise to be the most successful. Let's just call it. Like, even though it's a franchise, you want their framework, but you want to create your own success. So I would say, number one, reread your franchise agreement. Whatever you don't understand, ask your lawyer to look at it and actually try to find the loopholes, because there's always loopholes. So that's my answer.
Thank you for that. See, y'all, I told y'all, Miss Toshiba Billings spilling the tea, and she's answering us and helping us get our business to another level. That's powerful, Miss Hutchinson. Miss Toshiba is spot on. I used to work for State Farm, and one of the biggest things in insurance, when you work, just like she said, you want the infrastructure of an established, reputable company like State Farm, but the clientele are theirs, and they make it very well known throughout the franchising agreement. They make it very well known that every sale that you make, that they pay you for, is theirs. And so when you leave, that book of business remains with them. So Miss Toshiba is spot on, and she's
you don't want to get
us.
sued. Like, honestly, I think that's the big thing. You don't want to go ahead and end up doing something and building what ends up being somebody else's business because they turn around and sue you, right? And I've seen, again, my old company has definitely brought probably shifting 3 of our franchisees to court, and you don't want to be wrapped up in litigation in court, right? You want to be able to create something that is yours. So maybe there's a unique way, but I said, look for a loophole and just look to ensure that, you can follow something without following it. If you get my drift, right? Like, you can be following it, but not quite following it, right? So.
Love that. Mr. Toshiba, can my audience members, when working with you and reaching out to you, can they reach out to you virtually in the COVID-19 pandemic, or is it face to face?
So I do basically everything on Zoom, right? Even before, listen, I won't lie. I am like, I consider myself like an introverted extrovert. And so for me, I was like, shoot, everybody going online. I've been online. So I book everything basically through Zoom, or I don't really love phone calls because I can't see people's facial expressions. But if people do phone calls, that's fine. But yeah, if you go to my website, you can book me on my Calendly. I do a 15-minute free consultation with people, and generally it just sends you a Zoom link, and then I'll connect with you on Zoom. Because again, I just like to see people's faces. I think people are more honest this way when I can see their face.
Yeah, it's true. So reach out to her, find Mr. Toshiba, and reach out to her. She is going to connect with you virtually in most platforms and whatever your comfort level is. But yes, she does do virtual, y'all. So that question is answered.
I do.
Miss Billings, what are some upcoming blockbusters you have coming down the pipeline for us?
Okay. So I guess I could talk about my book. Yep. I guess I could talk about my book. Okay. So funny story about my first series of books. So I wrote a series of books that are available on Amazon. It's called the Sienna series. And it's basically like Black erotica. It's a Black love story. And I kind of take you through the beginning of this relationship with these, 2 amazing people. I really wanted to create a Black love story. I think a lot of the times we read some of our books and it's so filled with drama, and it's, who's cheating on who, and it's just a lot. Like, we're surrounded by that. And I didn't want that narrative. I wanted to show a couple who was going through some stuff, but could deal with it in a healthy way, right? And so I created this 6-part series. But how it happened to be a 6-part series is I made that decision in COVID. So I was writing the book, and I said, okay, I'm going to write, by the end of 2020, I want to have published 3 books, right? And so, I'm writing the book. I'm basically, kind of relaunching my business because I was kind of doing it on the side. And then I decided I'm going to do it seriously. I, built my website, like launched it ready to go. I launched the website on February 28th. And then on March 17th, entire Canada shut down. Like we were in phase one, like stage one. Like it was like shut down, everything was shut down. I actually had just left a client meeting, went home and said it shut down. And I was like, okay, well, ain't nobody trying to pay no X amount of dollars for business consultations where they're trying to figure out if their business is even gonna make it, right? Like I had to be realistic, and I'm not lowering my prices for anybody. Like, sorry, it's not gonna work. So I was like, I need to figure out a way that I can harness this time and use it wisely. So I had written enough for like 2.5 books, let's say. And I made the decision, say, I'd have to look at my text message when I sent it, but I want to say like March 19th, I was like, by April 1st, I'm publishing a book and I'm going to do a 6-part series. I just made that decision. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm figuring it out. I found out that, of course, I could create and publish books on Amazon. And what was great about Amazon is during COVID, where were most people ordering stuff from? Ha ha ha, Amazon.
He's a trillionaire now.
Right? So while you're buying your jeans or your toilet paper you couldn't find in the store because people hoarded them, you could throw in my book, right? So it was like, you're buying jeans.
But don't use it as toilet paper.
Right, don't use it as toilet paper. Don't do that because it's a great read. So then people would just throw in my book. So I basically made the decision that I was going to basically write and publish. So again, I had enough for about 2.5 books. So I published basically the 6 books on the 1st of each month. So April 1st, May 1st, June 1st, July 1st, August 1st, September 1st. I published the books to a total of about, they end up being like, the first book was like 30-ish pages. The last book was about 90 pages. So the count of all the books end up being like over 400 pages. And I just made it a thing. It was kind of my way to cope. It was actually a coping mechanism for me because there was so much happening in the world, right? And there was so much bad, and there were so many people who were they just weren't getting through it well. And then my own father got COVID, and all of these different things just kind of were happening all around me. And I was like, I need to find a way to focus my energy. And at the same time, I won't lie, I had to capitalize on the fact that people were home. More people were reading more than ever. More people were doing stuff. And so once I started marketing my books, I was surprised that people were just buying that. And once I said it was a series, people were like, I had a friend who literally ordered every single one as soon as I had it on pre-order. So that's kind of how my books came about. And love the books. If you check it out, put in my name in Amazon. It's called the Sienna series. It's, like I said, I think it's a beautiful love story. But you still, I talk about therapy in it, and, Black people normalize therapy, please. Like, we need to stop telling people we don't go to therapy, we go to church. That's what I was told growing up. You don't go to therapy, you bring your problems to the Lord. The problem was the Lord was not answering back. But anyways, I digress. So I tackle a bunch of things in the book more than love. And so, but then I decided that I was going to do more of a business book. I'd always wanted to do one. And again, like I said, my experiences that happened that threw me into business and everything that was happening in 2020. In my spirit, I said that this book needed to be written. And so I'm in the midst of writing book number 7, which is very different than the previous 6 I've written. And I know we're running out of time, so I'm like trying to keep my answers short because it's like the timer is in the corner. So.
Ignore the clock. Ignore the clock. You are helping us. I appreciate you. Y'all, find Miss Toshiba Billings, get that book, and tune in and dive into that series. That is, I haven't bought the book, but I'm definitely going to check it out. I'm an avid reader. Leaders are readers, and so someone my mind went to 50 Shades of Grey. I don't know why.
Listen. It is okay. It is because I've never actually read 50 Shades of Grey because I was like, that ain't for me. Those people, they're not. I don't know what them people do. They're not talking to me. And so, I guess some people have said it's 50 Shades of Grey-ish. So let's just say I'm not shy when I create a love scene, right? I want you to feel as if you're in that moment, and so I write as if you're in that moment. And if you read the reviews, because I have reviews on the book, take the reviews for what they are. They are unsolicited reviews. They are people who just bought it and went ahead and put it on there. And some of the men were very clear about how reading my books made them feel in the review. So take that for what it is.
I'm excited just to read the reviews. I'm going to check that out.
Please read the reviews. I would always say, if you're going to buy anything, read the reviews first, because like people will speak, like if I had my own reviews, that would be different. I can brag about myself. But when other people take the time to write reviews, I think that speaks volumes of the quality of work that you do. So I'm very proud of myself.
Amen. Proud of you as well. Keep pushing,
Thanks.
keep plugging away.
Thanks.
What three books? What three books? You gave us one, so I already know one. I got a hint. What three books would you recommend that every man and woman should read?
The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That honestly, like, I am. Listen, I know some people would say The Art of War and Rich Dad Poor Dad. Listen, we've heard that all before, right? Like, the autobiography of Malcolm X. I think everybody does that, but I think for me, The Subtle Art of Not Giving was a really good one. And to be honest, he's not really saying anything that you haven't heard before, but the way it's said, it's so funny. And I'm just going to, for me, it was like, you only have so many F's to give in a day, choose them wisely. And I think often, we make little subtle things in our life ruin our whole day. And, there's this thing, I think it was like, there's 86,700 seconds in a day or something like that. Let's just say that's the number. And if something happens to, if you had $87,600 and somebody stole $100, doesn't mean you throw the entire amount away. You don't. You're not going to throw away $87,500. So why is it that when someone ruins a minute or an hour of our day, we want to throw the entire day away, right? Like, stop giving people your power. And I think for me, again, I don't know if that's how he wrote it for me to get that lesson out of it, but for me, I've always said, why do we constantly give people our power? Right? There is something to be said when you're able to listen, learn, relate with someone, even if you don't share their perspective, and walk away from it. I don't give people my power by getting angry, right? I only have so many F's to give in the day. And honestly, whatever is going on in that moment probably isn't as important as all the gazillion other things that I need to focus on. So I personally really like that book. I would say any of Damon John's books, actually. Damon John has written some really good. I'm a fan of Damon John. I've met Damon John. I think he's an awesome person. Even just to meet him, as he's one of those people that you meet that, despite the fact that they're as wealthy as they are, they're still so very down to earth. And so I have had the opportunity to read two of his books. One was The Power of Broke. God, and what is the other one? You know what? I'm just going to put on my phone for a second because I just need to look it up because I read it on my Libby app. So, and I'm actually in the middle of reading one right now. So The Power of Broke, I think, was very good because it taught. I'm so Jamaican. I say taught because we don't pronounce right.
Tree. The tree.
It teaches you how to really harness not having a lot of money and what that means when you have to dig deep, right? If someone gives you $100,000 to start a business and you know that you don't have to give that $100,000 back, how you spend it will be very different than if you started a business with nothing, right? And he talks about the fact that he, I think a lot of people know Damon John's story, right? He started Fubu out of nothing, right? And his mother actually was the one who put a second mortgage on her home to help him later on when she realized that the business could be a success, right? And so he talks about kind of harnessing that brokenness of it going out and working, at Red Lobster and coming back and basically creating in like a factory line with his boys that he started the business with, and how what that meant. It meant a lot more than, kind of even where he is right now, where he's got the money to start other businesses. So I thought The Power of Broke was really good. Or any of Damon John's, honestly, because the other one that I'm reading right now is called Power Shift. I haven't been able to read it, but it's just all been, very good for me. And another one I recently read this one, which was Shonda Rhimes' A Year of Yes. I thought that was a really good book because she talks about, making the decision to live. And I think that was the big thing. We sometimes don't make a decision to live. I truly hate the saying you only live once, because that's actually false. You die once, you live every day. right? And I need people to think about that. Stop saying you only live once. We do not. We live every single day. We die once, right? And I think, being able to, I talk, it's funny. She talks about the year of yes. And I talk in my book to Black women about the fact that no is a complete sentence. And often, especially when we're in the corporate world, we do not say the word no. We say no, but, no, why, no, if, no, no, no. Like it's always no with something. And I say no, fucking walk away and call it a day, right? Like when something is not for you, just say no. No is a complete sentence, and say yes to the things that truly bring you joy and allow you to live your life. So I think, I tend to read a lot. Like I have once COVID hit, clearly the libraries were closed. And I'm actually, funny enough, a library person, because I can read a book, get a chance to read it, and then if I want, I can go out and buy it, right? Like it's kind of like a layaway plan back in the day because we were broke. My mom used to lay stuff away, right?
Mine too.
Right?
We had the same mom or something.
Right. So I like to kind of get my little preview, and then if I want, then I invest my money. So I've been able to read a lot. I tried to read a lot during COVID, and so it allowed me, because I have an app on my phone that I just get books downloaded to that I don't have to buy. So
I just started doing it. I just became an avid reader myself, and I've been able to plug through so many more books just because I'm on Audible now. So I've actually turned my car into kind of a learning mobile.
I love that. No, I love that. I 100. I wanted to turn my books into audiobooks at some point. I don't know about the series. I may at some point. I know the book that I'm writing now. I definitely want to, because I don't capture that audience, because there are people who are fine with reading paperback. There are people who want it on their device, and there are people who want to hear it. And because I do my talk show, and I know people don't watch it, but they'll listen to it. Right? I almost, because I'm missing that audience that will listen. So, good on you.
Thank you, Miss. How do you give back to your community?
You know what? I think time is free. That's the one thing. I think a lot of people think that we have to be able to give money. I have definitely given money. When COVID first hit, what I did was with a bunch of friends, I had them donate some money, and then I put it out on Facebook for people who were in need. And there were a few that came out, and so we bought them stuff through Amazon, and had it delivered, and then I donated a portion to a cause. But time is free, right? And I think if you can give your time, whether it's you go to a soup kitchen, whether it's whatever you do. I personally, I just joined a board. We have a Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce, and I just recently joined the board as one of the founding members of the Women's Committee. Not getting paid for it, but I think that there are benefits. Exactly. Thank you. There are benefits in be able to provide my voice and my time to help, Black women business owners and business owners as a whole. And I think if you can carve out some time to do something you're passionate about, and that again is what the Future Me letter did for me, right? I was recognizing that I wasn't dealing with my true passions. I was going through life and I was working, even though Lord knows they weren't appreciating all the work that I was doing. But the things that I really enjoyed doing, I didn't. One of the other things that we used to do, I don't know if we're going to be able to do it this Christmas, just COVID has changed everything, is there is a center close to my home in Toronto that is a housing place for single mothers. And so young ladies who get pregnant and they're kicked out of their homes, they basically go to the center, they'll have their baby, and then it's a transitional home for them to kind of get on their feet. And so we adopt a mother every Christmas. And I go to the center and I ask them, give us somebody, and let them give us their Christmas list. And a group of me and my 3 best friends, well, there's 4 of us in total, so it's me and 3 of them, we'll take things off the list and we go and purchase them, and then I bring them to the center. And because for me, it's like, I say to people, I don't necessarily have a lot. And, when you're in business and you're starting over, it's something to be said to be able to get a paycheck every 2 weeks. I don't get that anymore, right? Like, right. I am out there hustling between my talk show and my books and the business, every other thing that I'm trying to throw out there. I am hustling, but there's something to be said. I don't care if it's $5 or $500. You never know what that might make in the difference of somebody's life. And I've learned in my life that someone out there is praying for my problems. And, being from a third world country, I say to my daughter all the time when she says something, I said, that sounds like real first world problem that I'm not interested in, because someone out there is praying for your problems right now. And I think the more we think about it that way, that we are actually quite blessed. I get up every morning and I thank God for waking me up in the morning, because he didn't have to, right? And I think we need to really recognize that no matter what the situation we're in, taking a breath is a blessing. And what you do each day with that breath will mean a lot in your life. So that's my 2 cents.
Wow. Y'all, she's giving back to a community. She's a business owner. Did I read her bio, y'all? I don't think I did, because I think I missed that in the beginning. Miss Toshiba, how can my customers, not my customers, so I'm thinking all business. How can my audience reach you? How can they get a hold of you? How can they reach out to you?
God, okay, so there is my website, which is www.billings, so Billings, which is my last name, which is right there, consult.com. So there's that. I am also I run several Instagram pages. One is for Billings Consulting, which is Billings Consult, also on Instagram. I have a talk show that I co-host with 2 friends, and it's called Not Your Typical Girl Talk. And I also run that online page on Instagram, where we also have a channel on YouTube, and we go live right now on Instagram at Saturdays at 3 p.m. We actually are just in the midst of, we've been accepted to have a time slot on a radio show. So we'll be having our own radio show slot. So I'm just kind of sharing this because it's all coming together. So 2020 has not been so bad, right? So we've got that going on. And then, the crazy side of me, and my page used to be private, but now because I'm free, I don't care. So there is my personal Instagram, which is Toshiba, my first name, and my middle name, Monique, Monique. So there's that.
Wow. You guys, this has been powerful, Miss Billings. This has been incredible. I appreciate you. My audience appreciates you. I thank you guys for tuning in, subscribing, and learning and growing to me today. This is how we get to a better future, y'all. This is how we get to a better 2020 and a better 2021. Is dynamic women like Miss Billings working together, getting therapy, getting consultations, taking the time, and being bold enough to pay for that consultation, and getting out of our own heads and getting out of our right. We want to sit there and cut corners. Can I get a discount, girl? No, because there is a bigger purpose and there's value to what she's doing. And
that part.
Because of that value, we can't cut corners. You can't cut corners in life, so why cut corners in business? And so,
amen to that.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the show. Thank you, Ms. Billings. I hope I can have you on in the near future as you grow, as your. So you heard it live, y'all. She can't back out. She said she's coming back.
Listen, I will do it, because I will be. Listen, I need all the promotion in the world when I'm about to drop my 7th book. So listen, anytime, I am happy to come on. Hey, this was fantastic.
This was incredible. So, guys, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for tuning in to the Gentleman Style Podcast show. This is Marcus Norman and Miss Toshiba Billings coming to you live. And like always, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always take care of business. This is Marcus Norman and Miss Toshiba Billings signing off. Love you. Bye.